Hi everyone, Leah here from EurekaCrystalBeads.com with another fun beading video for you. Before I get started, just a quick reminder to go check out the rest of our channel. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. You'll always know when we're posting new content. Today's video is for a beaded tassel, and there are so many applications you can do here. So first of all, these fun tassels could be earrings, they could be pendants, you could make cute little tassels to hang off of bracelets. There are so many things you can do and so many ways you can have fun and change them up. So to start, let me show you what I'm going to be using for this tassel. Now I have a size 11 seed bead and a size 15 seed bead. This one happens to be Miyuki. This one happens to be Toho. You can use whatever brands you like, or you could use check seed beads. I do like the idea of having two different sizes though, so I would definitely recommend that. And then as far as my accent beads, I picked these colors very specifically. We have beautiful blues here that are reminiscent of Pantone's color of the year, which is classic blue. So I have some 6mm Swarovski pearls and some 4mm Swarovski bicones. And we will of course link you below to everything that I've used here that we have on EurekaCrystalBeads.com. Now, another thing to note is I'm also, in addition to using this really beautiful classic blue theme, I'm also mixing metals, which is a lot of fun as well. So I have a silver and a gold. You could do silver and rose gold. You could do gold and maybe an antique type of brass color. You could have a lot of fun with mixing metals, or you can stick with one metal if you prefer, or not go with any metals and just do colored seed beads. Certainly there's a lot of beautiful colors and finishes out there if you don't want to go the metallic route. It's up to you. The other thing I'm using, very important to note, is a size 12 needle. It's really important that you use a 12. Anything thicker, like a 10, you're going to have some trouble getting back through our main top bead a bunch of times, which is a 6mm pearl. And I'm using 6-pound fire line. You can go thinner with the fire line if you'd like, but I'm using 6-pound here. Now, the amount of fire line I'm using. For this tassel, when I made my initial sample, I started with a full wingspan and I did have some left. So I would say if you do about 3/4 of a wingspan, you're going to be covered, but always overestimate rather than underestimate. Now, as far as the number of beads here, for this tassel, I have 15 of my 4mm bicones because each little tassel length has 3 of them. And I have 6 6mm pearls. Now that's because each tassel, I'm making 5 little hangies on my tassel, will have one at the bottom, but I have a 6th one because this is going to be what gathers all of our little tassel dangles at the top. So that's why I have that there. So let's get started. Now, something to keep in mind is that the number of beads I have here, you can have fun and you can play with. So if you want to copy exactly what I have here, again, these are the numbers I've used, and we'll link you to everything I've used color-wise. But you can have a lot of fun, and you can make these tassel dangles as long as you'd like or as short as you'd like. The big thing I want to stress is that it is helpful to have beads at the bottom of each tangle, each little tassel dangle that are a bit heavier, and this is what's going to help weigh your tassel down, and it'll sit a little bit nicer. So to start, I'm going to pick up one of my 6mm pearls, and I'm going to pick up 14 of my little 15 seed beads here. Now, the thing to keep in mind with what we're doing here is we're creating a loop to start, and that loop might change depending on what you're going to be using this tassel for, whether it's going to be on a necklace or earrings, or maybe hanging off of a bracelet. So the 14 that I have here are going to make a loop that I like for this particular project. And we're actually going to be doing a double loop because I have in mind for this a necklace focal. You might want to just do a single loop if you're going to be hanging it off of ear wire because it's going to sit a little bit nicer. Right now, the double loop that you'll end up seeing when it's completed is supposed to be more reminiscent of a bail. So that's something that you might want to keep in mind. The other thing is, not only keeping in mind whether you want this to be more of a bail or more of a loop for an ear wire, how long you want this loop, how big you want this loop to be. So do you have already a chain in mind you're going to hang this off of? Are you going to be beading something for this, like a spiral rope? So you may need a larger loop than what I have here, but you'll see in a minute about how big this loop ends up being. Now I've slid my beads to the end of my fire line, and I'm leaving a tail that's a few inches long, just long enough that I can throw a needle on it later and weave it in just a little bit. So I'm going to go back through that pearl. You can see that loop that we get. So as right now at this point, this is where you're going to want to evaluate if that loop is big enough or if it's too big. So I'm going to take my tail and my working thread, and I am going to tie them in a square knot. Now this is not the a knot that's going to hold our entire tassel together. This is just so that way it keeps all of this here that we just did from loosening up. And that knot is going to be small enough that it's not going to get in our way either as we work on our tassel. It's really just something that's a temporary measure, just so that way none of this kind of comes apart as we start our tassel. So that's the start there. Now, as far as the dangle of the tassel, this is where you can start to have some fun. I will definitely give you nice up-close views of the exact bead count I pick up, so that way you will know exactly what I've used in case you want to copy mine. But definitely have fun and play with the amounts because you can get so many different beautiful variations with these lovely beaded tassels. So my particular bead order is going to start with 5 of my 15s. Then I'm going to pick up a bicone and then 5 more 15s. And now, in addition to using 2 different metals, I'm also going to start to blend them together just a little bit. So now I'm going to pick up one of my gold 11s and then another of my 15s, then the next bicone crystal. And I'll give you a nice close-up of this as well once I have all the beads loaded on. Now I'm going to pick up another silver 15 and another gold 11 and another silver 15 and then 5 more of my gold 11s. And now for the beads at the very bottom, I'm going to have a bicone and a pearl. And I'm going to end with 3 little gold 11s. And this is going to be what keeps all of the beads of the dangle on because we're going to turn around and go back up through all of the other beads. But having 3 here is going to create what's called a picot. And it's going to be a little group of 3 beads that looks just a little more fancy than having a single seed bead there. But you can certainly use a single seed bead if that's what you prefer, if that's sort of the look you'd get. But here we're going to get a neat little triangle design. So whether you put on 1 or 3, just move them out of the way and then head right back up all of the beads, starting with the pearl. Don't try to go through all of them at once. If you do, great, but don't worry. Just kind of go through whatever your needle will pull through. And by the way, that's what that nice little picot looks like. Cute little accent at the bottom. Again, it helps to also visually add that heaviness to the tassel, which I think looks really nice. We're going to go up all the rest of the way and then end by going up through the pearl. Just like that. Now here is where you're going to want to make that final decision. Do I want a single loop or do I want a double loop? For me, I'm going to do the double loop. So I'm going to pick up another 14 of my size 15 little silver guys there. And we're going to head right back down that pearl and come out right at the bottom. This is what we get our cool little double loop look. I think it just has kind of a nice look if you're going to be using this for a pendant. And if you're not super happy with them looking like perfect circles, I'm going to show you a trick later, so stay tuned for that one. All right, now for the next little dangle. So you're going to just want to hold that tail out of the way. I know it might get in the way just a little bit, but actually first let me give you that nice close-up of everything that I have loaded here. There you go. So you can pause the video if you need to see the actual order of the beads again. So we're going to make this next dangle identical to this one here, but keep in mind you can make all of these little dangles different lengths as well, so that's another way that you can change up the design. We're going to start with another 5 of these 15s, then go to a bicone and 5 more 15s, might be helpful to slide them down in little chunks so you can see where they sit and you can see more easily what to pick up next, just like that. Now we're going to pick up a gold and another silver, so an 11 and back to another 15, and then another bicone. Now another silver 15, another gold 11, another silver 15, and then 5 gold 11s. And lastly, we have the very bottom, which is a bicone, 6mm pearl, and our 3 little 11s that are going to create that really fun little picot. Here we have it. So just like before, we're going to push those 3 out of the way, keep them at the bottom there, and go up all of the other beads. And really, I can't say this enough, don't spend so much time trying to get through all the beads at once. That it really would have been easier just to go through little bits at a time. But I really just try to go through whatever my needle happens to pop through, and then I go through another chunk. So now I'm going up through the last 5, and I'm going to pop out of that pearl at the very top. Okay, so now that's what we got here. Now, as we make more of these dangles, we're going to keep ending up back at the top right here. So we have to turn around and get back down underneath the pearl to do the next angle. So to do that, we're going to pull a little U-turn, and we're going to go up through one of these beaded loops. So that way we can head back down the pearl. Now what you'll do is the next time you get to the top here, go and use the other loop to make that little U-turn. This way you start to reinforce both of them. So we're just going to pick one of them. Start to head back down. And pop down, back down through that pearl. Like that. You can see my needle coming out of that pearl there. Now, let me show you that neat little trick. So you'll notice my loop is not looking as neat as I might want it to. It has kind of like a flat edge at the top. Let me show you a fun little trick. If you grab a pair of round nose pliers, or if you have an awl, you can nicely just reshape those loops a little bit. And now look how nice and neat and pretty those look. Now they're sitting really, really beautifully. So that's my little trick there for you. Okay, so at this point, what we're going to do is I'm going to cut away, and I'm going to come back with my finished tassel so I can explain a few more things. But all we would do here is repeat exactly what we've been doing. We're going to load on the beads, and with that little group of 3, head right back up, go up the pearl, pick a loop to go through to turn back around, head back down through the pearl, and create another tassel. Now, there's only going to be so many of our little tassel dangles that you can create, because there's only so many times we can go back through this pearl or back through the 15s in our loops here. And there's only so many dangles we can make before it starts to look very bulky up here right under the pearl. Right now it works because we have those 15s there, and that not only looks pretty, but it also helps us to taper down all of those little tassel dangles together underneath the pearl. If you start your tassel right here with a bunch of 11s, things are going to get bulky really fast. So the 15s are a bit more crucial here, not just for visual design purposes, but to get everything to taper down nicely here. So that's pretty important. So we're just going to repeat until we get a total of 5 little dangles here. And again, this is a beautiful earring style as well. And you could make several dangles and have them be 3 different lengths. And that's a lovely earring design. Again, I would also just make 1 loop here instead of the double. So there's definitely some fun things you can do. The last thing that I'm going to show you before I cut away is once all 5 of them are done, or say I want to be finished after these 2, this is exactly where you want your threads to be. You want to have just pulled that little U-turn through one of your beaded loops, and you have your tail and your working thread both at the bottom of your main top pearl. And all you're going to end up doing, if this is where you were completed, is you're going to take your tail and your working thread and you're going to tie them in a square knot. The thing with weaving out your threads in this tassel is that there's only so much you can do within the length of your little dangles here, because we don't want them to get too stiff. So that's why we've gone through them once and then back up to create them. But we don't want to go back down them a bunch of times and create a bunch of knots there, because it's going to make them sit a bit more stiffly. So this really is the best place that you can secure your threads. So we're going to do that square knot, right over left, left over right. And then what I like to do is I will travel down a tassel just a little bit of a ways before I trim my thread. So something to keep in mind is we started at the very beginning with a nice little square knot there, and we have another square knot right here as well holding this together. And then all you would do is stick your needle onto the little tail and pick a different dangle and just travel down there just a little bit, just maybe a quarter of the way or not even, and then trim off your thread. All right, I'll be back in a second to show you the finished piece. All right, here is my little finished tassel here. So just to go over some of those design elements again, I did have the mixed metal and I did start to blend them in together right about here in the middle of the tassel. I think that's a really nice thing to do, so that way the shift from one metal to the other isn't quite as jarring, but that is purely subjective. If you want to see all silver right here and all gold underneath that bicone, go for it. Again, we have weight at the bottom, not just visually because it tends to look nice on a tassel, but also because it's going to help our tassel sit a little nicer while it's hanging off of whatever we're going to hang it off of. These would even be great if you have overhead fans in your house. You could make beautiful fan poles. That's another really lovely thing to do with these. You could make a nice large tassel and you could have it be even part of your window treatments, as part of tiebacks in your window treatments. Tassels are a lot of fun, and you're going to see them a lot in so many different aspects besides jewelry. So really fun things around your house too. So definitely, start making some tassels today. I think you're going to find a lot of uses for them. And then the last thing was just picking out what we wanted at the bottom, whether it was that single seed bead or whether it was that 3-bead picot. Again, I think either looks beautiful, but this does add a little bit more to that visual weight, which is what I like in a tassel. And then lastly, just figuring out that double or single loop at the top, how big you want that loop to be, and whether you want it to be this sort of a bail look or a single loop that would be more appropriate for an ear wire. So that is what we have, folks. I hope that I see all of you guys in the Beader's Nook start to post some beautiful beaded tassels. I think all of the variations you all could come up with would be so fantastic. And if you're not part of the Beader's Nook, definitely check us out on Facebook. So that wraps it up. Thanks for watching. Make sure to visit us on over at EurekaCrystalBeads.com for everything I used in this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.